She was just a maid, an African woman working in the opulent mansion of Seoul's most feared mafia CEO. Brave, loyal, and unassuming, she never imagined that one fateful day would change her life forever. When bullets rained down to take the life of the CEO's 5-year-old daughter, she didn't hesitate. She threw herself in the line of fire, taking the shots meant for the innocent child. Little did she know, that single act of courage would shatter the walls around the cold, untouchable Korean Mafia king. A man who ruled with fear, power, and unrelenting control, until the fearless black Maid entered his world. In one impulsive, shocking moment, he made her his wife, claiming her not just for protection, but for life. A marriage born of danger, loyalty, and desire, where passion burns hotter than bullets, and love is as forbidden as it is unstoppable. Now, she must navigate the treacherous world of mafia rivalries, hidden enemies, and a man whose past is darker than the streets of Seoul itself. But amidst the chaos, one thing becomes clear. Nothing in this world can protect them like their courage, their bond, and their love. Will their love survive bullets, betrayal, and the deadly secrets of the mafia? Or will the very world that brought them together tear them apart forever? Seoul's skyline glittered like a string of diamonds as the early morning sun reflected off the glass towers. In one of the city's most exclusive districts, a mansion loomed, a fortress disguised as luxury. Jae-hyun Kim, the notorious Korean Mafia CEO, was already at work. Known for his ruthlessness in business and underworld dealings, he ran his empire with an iron fist. Yet, even he could not escape the world of fragile innocence he shared with his 5-year-old daughter, Soo-min. Inside the mansion, sunlight streamed through ornate curtains, landing softly on polished floors. In the kitchen, Zara, a young black woman from Nigeria, moved with a quiet grace. Her skin, deep as ebony, glowed in contrast to the marble countertops. She hummed softly as she prepared Soo-min's breakfast, her hands deftly chopping fruit and pouring warm milk. Despite the opulence surrounding her, Zara moved with humility, her heart always focused on the little girl who had become the center of her world. "Zara," Soo-min's tiny voice squeaked from the hallway. "I want the pink dress." Zara smiled, ruffling the child's curls. "All right, princess. Pink it is." The sound of playful laughter floated through the air. For a brief moment, the mansion's cold, luxurious walls seemed almost alive with warmth. But Jae-hyun's presence loomed nearby, a silent shadow. From his office window, he observed the scene, his expression unreadable. He was a man who trusted few, but Zara had earned an unusual place in his heart, not as a servant, but as someone who had proven herself reliable and brave. The calm shattered like glass. Screeching tires echoed in the driveway, followed by the harsh rattle of automatic weapons. The intruders had come. The mansion's security alarms blared, a warning that danger had arrived. Zara's instincts kicked in immediately. She grabbed Soo-min, shielding her small body with her own. The first shots tore through the air, bullets embedding into walls, shattering plates, and splintering wooden furniture. "Stay behind me," Zara yelled, pulling Soo-min into the corner of the room. Her heart pounded, not just from fear, but from a fierce determination to protect the child she had come to love as her own. Jae-hyun burst from his office, fury and disbelief flashing in his eyes. "How did they get in?" he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. But there was no time for questions. The enemy was inside, trained professionals aiming for his daughter. A second volley of gunfire hit the room. Time seemed to slow. Zara acted before she could think. She flung herself over Soo-min just as a bullet pierced the air between them. Pain erupted across her shoulder, then her side. She gritted her teeth, refusing to cry out. Soo-min whimpered, her tiny hands clutching Zara's blood-stained sleeve. Jae-hyun's world narrowed to a single moment. He watched, frozen, As the black maid he barely truly knew sacrificed herself for his child. The CEO who commanded fear and loyalty from hundreds, who had never shown weakness, felt something unfamiliar, a raw, burning anger. The intruders paused, startled by the unexpected defiance. Zara, though wounded, rose slightly to shield Su-min further. Her dark eyes burned with resolve. "You'll never touch her," she shouted, her voice carrying the courage of 1,000 warriors. Shots fired again, but this time, the intruders hesitated. Jae-hyun moved faster than anyone expected, tackling the nearest attacker with brutal precision. Within moments, chaos consumed the mansion as guards and intruders exchanged fire. But amid the chaos, one truth remained undeniable. Zara's act of bravery had saved Su-min's life. Blood pooled beneath her, and Zara's strength began to wane. She collapsed onto the floor, cradling Su-min against her chest. The child, eyes wide with confusion and fear, clung to her savior. Jae-hyun reached them, fury and fear battling within him. "No, no, stay with me," he barked, lifting Zara carefully. His normally icy demeanor cracked as he noticed the depth of her wounds. He carried her through the chaos to the mansion's emergency room, the sounds of gunfire fading behind them. Su-min clung to Jae-hyun's leg, tears streaking her cheeks. "Zara, hurt? She's hurt." Jae-hyun's jaw tightened. "I know, princess. She'll be all right. I promise." But even as he said it, doubt gnawed at him. He had seen many men die in his line of work, but this was personal. The hospital staff acted quickly, taking Zara from his arms. Monitors beeped, and the metallic smell of antiseptic filled the air. Jae-hyun, unaccustomed to waiting, paced the room, fists clenched. He had dealt with betrayal, bloodshed, and loss countless times, but seeing Zara, a black maid from Africa, lying helpless after risking her life for his child, stirred a fury and an admiration he couldn't name. Su-min tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, she's my hero." Jae-hyun looked down at his daughter, then back at the glassed-off ICU room. He realized something terrifying and exhilarating all at once. He was not prepared to let her go. Zara had stepped into his world and changed it, showing him courage and love that no one in his life had ever shown him. Hours passed. The city outside moved on, oblivious to the drama unfolding in the mansion's sterile corridors. Finally, the doctor emerged, wiping sweat from his brow. "She's stable. She's strong, but she's not out of danger yet. You should be ready for a long recovery." Jae-hyun nodded, his mind already racing. He would ensure Zara had everything she needed to heal, to recover, and he would make sure she knew, without words at first, through actions, that he owed her more than life itself. As he stared at her through the glass, Su-min's small hand clutching his sleeve, he whispered under his breath, "You saved my daughter, and for that, you'll never be alone." And in that moment, something irreversible sparked. Zara had entered his world. Not just as a maid, but as a force that would change the course of their lives forever. The dangerous world of the Korean Mafia had just collided with a heart it had never prepared for, Zara's courage. Little did they know, this act of bravery would set in motion a chain of events that would challenge loyalty, power, and love, and force Jae-hyun to confront emotions he had buried long ago. For today was not just the day Zara saved Su-min. It was the day the CEO met the woman who would one day become the center of his world. The rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor was deafening in the otherwise silent ICU room. Each pulse was a reminder that Zara was alive. Barely, but alive nonetheless. Jae-hyun Kim, the feared Korean Mafia CEO, sat rigidly in a chair by her bedside, his sharp suit slightly disheveled, tie loosened. He hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, and his usually stoic expression had softened into something unrecognizable: worry. Su-min hovered nearby, clutching a soft teddy bear, her little legs bouncing anxiously. "Daddy, is Zara going to be okay?" she asked, her voice small and trembling. Jae-hyun's eyes, usually cold and calculating, softened as they fell on his daughter. "She's strong, princess. She'll be okay. She's a fighter," he said. Though his voice carried an edge of uncertainty, he didn't let anyone see. Inside, every second that Zara's chest rose and fell felt like a miracle. Zara's face was pale, lips slightly parted, a thin sheen of sweat covering her brow. The bullet wounds had left bruises across her shoulders and side, but she was breathing steadily. Nurses had done their best, stabilizing her and cleaning the wounds, but it would be weeks before she could even sit up without assistance. Jae-hyun found himself staring at her, noticing every detail. The curve of her brow, the strength in her jaw, the way she clutched Soo-min's blanket in her sleep. It wasn't just gratitude that made his chest tighten. It was something more dangerous, something he hadn't felt in years: fascination. He remembered every story, every report of Zara's bravery. The way she had thrown herself in front of his daughter, unhesitatingly, without a second thought for her own life. Most people in his world were selfish, manipulative, and afraid. But she had no fear. And for the first time, Jae-hyun felt completely powerless. Soo-min tugged at his sleeve again. "Daddy, she saved me. I love her. Can she stay?" Jae-hyun swallowed hard, a rare lump forming in his throat. He had power, money, influence, but this little girl's words struck him in a way no bullet or business deal ever could. "She will stay," he said quietly, almost to himself. Hours passed. The city outside continued its relentless pace, but inside the ICU, time slowed. Jae-hyun refused to leave Zara's side. His mind was a storm of thoughts about enemies, about safety, and now, about this woman who had become so important so quickly. He finally spoke to the nurse, his voice firm and commanding. "I want round-the-clock monitoring. No one leaves her side. No exceptions." The nurse nodded, accustomed to his tone but aware of the unusual tenderness in his eyes. "Yes, sir. We'll do everything we can." When the nurse left, Jae-hyun leaned closer, lowering his voice. "You're going to be okay, Zara. You hear me?" His fingers twitched, itching to brush a lock of hair from her forehead, but he stopped himself, remembering the boundaries of formality. Yet he couldn't resist the urge to place a hand lightly on the bed beside hers, just to feel her presence. Zara's eyelids fluttered open. Her dark eyes, still glazed with pain and exhaustion, met his. For a moment, there was silence. No words, just unspoken understanding. "You're awake," he said, voice surprisingly gentle. Zara managed a weak smile. I had to keep her safe." Her voice was faint, but every word carried unyielding determination. "Your daughter, she's precious." Jae-hyun's chest tightened. He had never expected to hear such honesty and bravery from anyone, let alone someone he had barely known. "You did more than keep her safe," he said, voice low. "You risked your life for her and for me." Zara looked away, embarrassed, as if she didn't want praise. "I didn't do it for you. I don't know why I did it. I couldn't let her get hurt." Her words struck him even deeper. It wasn't loyalty born of fear or payment. It was pure courage. And it made him question everything he had known about people in his world. Most were loyal for a price. Zara's loyalty had no price, no hidden motive. "You'll heal," he said finally. "And I'll make sure you're safe. From now on, nothing will hurt you. I promise." Zara's gaze softened, and for a moment, she allowed herself to lean slightly closer to him. There was a subtle connection, fragile but undeniable. Jae-hyun felt it too, a pull, a thread weaving them together. It was dangerous, impossible even, yet he could not resist it. Soo-min, ever perceptive, leaned over the edge of the bed. "Zara, you have to stay. You're my hero," she whispered, her little hand brushing Zara's. The innocence in her voice, free from fear or judgment, added a layer of warmth to the tense atmosphere. Jae-hyun watched the scene, heart stirring in ways he hadn't thought possible. This little girl had created a bond between them that even he could not break. And somewhere in that bond, he realized that Zara was no longer just a maid. She was now an integral part of his life, a presence that could no longer be ignored or dismissed. Later, as night fell over the city, Jae-hyun remained at her side. The room was dim, the only light coming from the blinking monitors. He reflected on his past. The ruthless decisions, the betrayals, the countless lives he had taken or ruined. Nothing had prepared him for this. For the first time, he didn't want control. He didn't want power. He wanted her to live, to stay, and to trust him. Zara stirred slightly in her sleep, murmuring Soo-min's name. Jae-hyun couldn't help but smile faintly. He had never imagined that a black maid from Africa, someone he had barely noticed in the mansion, would have such an impact on him. Would have pierced the armor he had built over years of pain, loneliness, and violence. And in that moment, he made a silent vow. Zara would never face danger alone again. No one would threaten her or his daughter. She had risked everything, and now he would do the same. For her, for Soo-min, and for the fragile bond that had begun to form between them. The city continued to sleep outside, unaware of the life-altering events taking place within the quiet ICU. But for Jae-hyun Kim, the Mafia King, and Zara, the brave African maid, everything had changed in a single day. One act of courage had shifted the balance of their worlds, intertwining their fates in ways neither could yet understand. Tomorrow, he would have to make decisions about her future, about the protection of his family, and about the strange, growing feelings he could no longer ignore. But for now, he simply watched over her, silently promising that her bravery would never be forgotten, and that the black maid who had saved his daughter would never walk alone again. The mansion was quiet in the late afternoon, a sharp contrast to the chaos that had erupted just a day ago. The sun filtered through the tall windows of Jae-hyun Kim's private office, glinting off the polished mahogany surfaces and gold-trimmed decor. Normally, this room was a sanctuary of control, a place where deals were made, enemies crushed, and power displayed like a weapon. But today, the CEO sat behind his massive desk, staring at the empty chair across from him, a chair that should have been occupied by Zara. She had been moved to a private recovery suite in the mansion, guarded and cared for by a team of doctors and nurses, but her absence in this office gnawed at him. He had spent hours replaying the previous day's events. The way she had flung herself over Soo-min, absorbing bullets meant for a 5-year-old child. He had fought men who thought nothing of taking a life. But this act of courage had pierced something deep within him. He stood abruptly, pacing the room, his tailored suit moving with him, perfectly crisp yet slightly creased from hours of sitting. His mind was a storm. She risked her life for my daughter. And for me. She didn't even hesitate. A knock at the door snapped him from his thoughts. It was one of his trusted aides, a man who had never questioned his decisions. "Sir, the doctors say she's stable. She might awaken soon. Shall I?" "No." Jae-hyun cut him off, voice sharper than intended. "I want to see her myself." Minutes later, he walked through the pristine corridors of the mansion, each step measured and commanding, though his heart was anything but. The corridor led to a suite overlooking the mansion's gardens. Inside, Zara lay on a large bed, pale but awake, her dark eyes meeting his as he entered. She tried to sit up, wincing, but Jae-hyun moved to her side instantly. "Don't," he said firmly, but without harshness. "Stay where you are. You need to heal." Zara's lips curved into a small, tired smile. I wanted to check on Soo-min," she whispered. "She's fine," he said, his voice softening. "Because of you." Her gaze dropped to the bed covers, the faintest blush rising on her cheeks. "I didn't do it to be praised," she said, voice quiet but steady. "I did it because she's your daughter. She's innocent." Jae-hyun's chest tightened. Innocence, courage, fearlessness. And yet she remains so humble. He had never met a woman like her. Not in the boardrooms, not in the streets, not even in the lives of those who had surrounded him with false loyalty. Without thinking, without reason, he said the words that startled even himself. "Marry me." The words hung in the air like a blade. Zara froze, her wide eyes locking on his. Disbelief mingled with fear and confusion. "What?" I said. He repeated, his tone firmer, more commanding. "Marry me. Right here. Right now." For a long moment, silence filled the room. Zara's mind raced, trying to process the absurdity of the statement. She had survived bullets, saved a child, and endured near death. But this? She had no words. I can't," she stammered, shaking her head. I'm not. I'm not." "Why?" he interrupted sharply, though his voice carried an unfamiliar vulnerability. "Why can't you?" Zara looked down, fighting the mix of fear, exhaustion, and anger that churned inside her. "Because this isn't real. You're the Korean Mafia CEO. I'm just a maid. You saved my life. Yes, but marriage? This is impossible." Jae-hyun's eyes softened, the sharpness fading into something raw and human. "Impossible? You risked your life for my daughter without hesitation. You stood in front of bullets meant for her and didn't flinch. You're strong, brave, more capable than anyone in my world. And yet you say it's impossible to be with me." Zara's chest heaved. She had never heard anyone speak to her this way. Not the way he did, blunt, unfiltered, yet oddly sincere. I don't even know you," she whispered. He leaned closer, his hand hovering just above hers, hesitating. "You know me enough to risk your life for my child. That's enough. That's all the proof I need." For the first time, Zara saw the cracks in the man who was otherwise untouchable. The ruthless CEO, feared across Seoul and beyond, was not making a calculated business decision. He was vulnerable, and that vulnerability was terrifying, but also strangely magnetic. Soo-min, who had been quietly sitting on a chair beside the bed, piped up suddenly. "Zara, say yes. You're my mommy now." Zara blinked, stunned by the child's blunt insistence. She opened her mouth to protest, but the sincerity in Soo-min's wide, innocent eyes stopped her. The little girl's words weren't just whimsical, they were heartfelt. Jae-hyun's gaze shifted from the child to her, sharp and unrelenting. "She has chosen you, Zara. She trusts you with her life. So do I. Don't overthink it. Not now. Not after everything you've done." Zara's mind raced. Her independence, her pride, the life she had known, all of it told her to refuse. And yet, her body and heart betrayed her. She had faced death for Soo-min, had stared bullets in the eye and survived. And now, standing in front of this man, feeling the raw intensity in his eyes, she realized something she hadn't admitted. She didn't want to run away. She began, voice trembling. I need time." Jae-hyun's jaw tightened. He wasn't used to waiting. Patience had never been his virtue, and yet, he understood. "Fine," he said after a long pause. "You'll have time to think." "But no. This, Zara. No one else will protect you the way I will. No one." Zara met his gaze, her dark eyes locking with his. "And if I say yes?" she asked, a hint of mischief and fear in her tone. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. "Then you'll find out exactly how much danger and exactly how much love you've just signed up for." Soo-min clapped her tiny hands. "Yay, Mommy and Daddy," she exclaimed, her excitement breaking the tension in the room. Jae-hyun chuckled softly, a rare, genuine sound that filled the suite. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to imagine a future, not just of power and control, but of family, of love, and of someone willing to stand beside him against the world. And Zara, though still unsure, felt the first flicker of hope. She had faced death once already. Perhaps, just perhaps, she could face the uncertainties of love. Outside the suite, the city continued its relentless pace. unaware that within these walls, a dangerous and powerful man had just made an impulsive promise that would change all their lives forever. For Jaehyun Kim, the Korean Mafia CEO, one act of bravery had blossomed into obsession, respect, and an unspoken, undeniable attraction. And for Zara, the black maid from Africa, one day of courage had led her to a choice that could either destroy her or finally give her a place where she truly belonged. The mansion had never felt more alive or more suffocating. Zara lay in her private suite, still weak but determined to regain her strength. Jaehyun spent long hours by her side, ensuring she had everything she needed. At first, his presence had been intimidating, a silent reminder of the man she had unwittingly stepped into the life of. But now, there was something in the way he looked at her, something unspoken, that made her pulse quicken and her thoughts scatter. She had always been independent. Coming from Africa, she had relied on herself, working hard to survive, and never imagining that she would be thrown into the dangerous, glittering world of a Korean mafia family. And yet, here she was, injured, cared for by a man who had saved her life in a way that money or force could never repay, and who now watched her like she was the rarest treasure on the planet. Jaehyun leaned against the window, arms crossed, watching her carefully. The sunlight glinted off his dark hair and sharp features, highlighting the intensity in his eyes. Zara could feel it. The way he observed her, measuring, analyzing, and perhaps desiring. She shivered, not from the cold, but from the awareness that this man, feared by thousands, had feelings she couldn't yet define. "You're getting stronger," Jaehyun said, breaking the silence. His voice was low, almost intimate. "You'll be walking around soon, and I'll hold you personally responsible if you try to fight bullets again." Zara allowed herself a small, teasing smile. "I'll try to avoid bullets this time, but I can't promise I'll stay out of trouble." His lips twitched into the faintest smile, and for a moment, the tension between them seemed almost electric. Zara caught herself staring, noting the way his jaw tensed, the way his eyes softened only when they were fixed on her. Her heart raced, and she chastised herself. She was a maid, a guest in his world, a woman from a completely different culture. And yet, the attraction was undeniable. Soo-min ran into the room, her tiny legs moving quickly despite her father's attempts to restrain her. "Zara, look what I drew for you," she said, holding up a crude but heartfelt drawing of her and Zara, hand in hand, with the mansion in the background. Zara's heart swelled, and she leaned down to hug the child, ignoring the throbbing pain in her side. "It's beautiful, princess." "Thank you." Jaehyun watched this exchange silently, feeling a warmth he hadn't expected. His daughter's trust in Zara made him see her in a new light. Not just as a maid, but as someone who could protect, nurture, and even love. But alongside that warmth, a dangerous thought crept into his mind. "I can't afford to lose her. And if anyone threatens her, I'll destroy them." The afternoon passed quietly, but the calm was deceptive. News from the city arrived, a warning from one of his lieutenants. A rival gang had learned about the incident at the mansion and was plotting retaliation. They would not forget that the CEO's daughter had been involved, nor would they ignore the black maid who had stolen bullets meant for her. Zara's eyes widened when she overheard a fragment of the conversation. "Retaliation? They're coming here." Jaehyun's expression darkened. "Yes, and this time they won't hold back." He took a step closer to her, his presence commanding yet strangely comforting. "Which is why you need to stay here. You're not leaving this room without me." Zara nodded, though a part of her bristled at the confinement. She was strong, capable, and resourceful, traits that had saved her life more than once. But there was no arguing with Jaehyun. When he made a decision, it became law. Hours turned into evening. The mansion staff were on high alert, and the perimeter was fortified. Yet despite the looming threat, a tension grew between Zara and Jaehyun that had nothing to do with danger. She caught him looking at her once, a fleeting glance that lingered longer than normal. Her stomach fluttered, and she quickly looked away, focusing on Soo-min's homework instead. But the electricity in the room was undeniable. Jae-hyun cleared his throat. "Zara, I need you to understand something." She looked up, wary. "Yes. I don't make mistakes," he said slowly, carefully. "But meeting you, letting you risk your life for my daughter. That's the first time I've ever been wrong about a person. You've changed things here. And I can't ignore what I feel." Zara's pulse quickened. His words were dangerous, intimate, revealing a side of him that most people never saw. "And what do you feel?" she asked softly, her voice trembling just enough to betray her own curiosity. He stepped closer, reducing the space between them to almost nothing. "Respect, admiration, and something more. Something I shouldn't feel, but do." Zara's eyes widened. She knew exactly what he meant, and the thought terrified her. She had survived bullets, navigated a dangerous world, and yet now she faced a new kind of danger, her own heart. "Jae-hyun," she whispered, a mixture of warning and confession. What you feel, it's complicated. I'm not from your world. I don't belong here. I don't." She trailed off, unable to find the words to describe the storm inside her. He tilted his head, his dark eyes locking with hers. "I don't care about your world, Zara. I only care about you." Soo-min, oblivious to the tension, climbed onto the bed and hugged Zara's arm. "Daddy says I can't lose you, Zara. You're my mommy now." The child's words struck a chord deep inside Zara. Her heart softened, the fear mixing with something warm and protective. She realized that no matter how different their worlds were, they had been bound together by courage, loyalty, and life-or-death circumstances. Just as the moment seemed to linger, a sharp alert from the security system sounded through the mansion. Jae-hyun's body tensed instantly. "They're here." Zara's pulse raced, but she did not panic. She had faced death once already. And now, standing beside the man who had become more than just an employer, she knew she could face it again. Jae-hyun's hand found hers, gripping it tightly, not a gesture of force, but of trust and connection. "Stay close," he whispered, eyes blazing with determination. "No one touches you. No one touches my daughter." The mansion, once a place of luxury and calm, was now a battleground in waiting. And between them, an invisible thread of forbidden attraction, respect, and growing love pulled Zara and Jae-hyun together. The enemy outside might be dangerous, but the tension inside, between their hearts, was far more volatile. Tonight, the Black Maid and the Korean Mafia CEO would begin the dangerous dance of trust, desire, and survival. And neither of them would ever be the same. The mansion was quiet once more, but silence did not mean safety. Jae-hyun Kim sat in his private study, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. The city lights of Seoul flickered through the massive windows, casting long shadows across the room. He had spent the day planning, strategizing against rival gangs, checking on Zara, and ensuring Soo-min was safe. But his mind kept drifting to the past, a past he had carefully buried beneath layers of power and ruthlessness. Zara, meanwhile, rested in her suite. Her wounds were healing, but her spirit was restless. She had survived bullets, navigated a world of wealth and danger, and yet the more she learned about the mansion, the Mafia empire, and Jae-hyun himself, the more she realized just how deep she had stepped into a life far removed from her own. Her thoughts were interrupted when Jae-hyun appeared at her door. His presence was commanding, as always, yet tonight there was a shadow in his eyes. "Can I sit?" he asked quietly. Zara nodded, curious. "Of course." He took a seat beside her bed, his gaze fixed on her. "You need to understand the world you've stepped into," he began, his voice low and measured. "You think saving my daughter was enough to stay safe, but this world, it's unforgiving." Zara's heart skipped a beat. She had expected danger, but hearing him speak so openly about it made it real in a way she hadn't anticipated. I understand that it's dangerous, she said softly, trying to hide the tremor in her voice. But I've faced danger before. I can handle it. Jae-hyun's eyes darkened. This isn't just bullets or rival gangs. My enemies are ruthless. They will stop at nothing to get what they want. And you've put yourself directly in their path. She swallowed hard, feeling the weight of his words. I did it for Soo-min. And for you. I couldn't let her die. I couldn't let her live in fear. He studied her, his sharp features softened by a rare vulnerability. You've always been brave, Zara. But bravery alone won't protect you here. You need to understand what's at stake. And with that, he began to tell her about his past, the betrayals, the murders, and the relentless power struggles that had shaped him. My father was a tyrant, he said, his voice tinged with anger and pain. He taught me that weakness is fatal, that trust is a liability. I learned to survive by being ruthless, by eliminating threats before they could touch me. Zara listened, her heart aching for the boy he must have been. And Soo-min, she asked softly. He shook his head. She is the reason I've tried to change. She is the only person who reminds me that life is more than power and fear. But enemies see her as leverage, and because of me, she is constantly at risk. Zara reached out, touching his hand lightly. You've done everything to protect her. That counts for something. He glanced at her, eyes intense. It counts for everything. And yet, I cannot protect you the way I want. I cannot let you be just a part of this world and remain safe. Not now. Not ever. Her stomach tightened. She realized the full gravity of her situation. She wasn't just a maid. She wasn't just someone who had saved a child. She was now entwined in the life of a man whose enemies were merciless, whose past was dark, and whose empire demanded loyalty, secrecy, and danger. I didn't know it was like this, she admitted, voice trembling. I thought I could help, but I didn't realize how much I'd be risking everything. Jae-hyun leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. You are risking everything, and yet you stayed. That is why you mean more to me than anyone else ever could. You see the child, you see me, you see what others refuse to acknowledge. And that makes you invaluable. Zara's eyes met his, dark and searching. She understood now that this wasn't just about gratitude or duty. Jae-hyun was showing her a side of himself that no one else had ever seen, a side that was capable of care, respect, and even love. And the realization stirred something dangerous within her, attraction. But it was complicated. She couldn't ignore the power imbalance, the cultural differences, and the deadly world surrounding them. I don't belong here, she said quietly. I don't know if I can be part of this world or yours. His hand found hers again, firm but gentle. You belong where you want to belong. But know this. I cannot let anything harm you. Not now. Not ever. You've already faced bullets for my child. The thought of losing you, Zara, it's unbearable. The weight of his words pressed down on her. She had faced danger before, but the emotional gravity of his declaration was unlike anything she had experienced. She realized that she was already deeply connected to him, whether she wanted to be or not. The moment was interrupted by a sharp knock at the door. Jae-hyun's expression darkened immediately. What is it? One of his lieutenants stepped in, face grave. Sir, surveillance has detected movement near the mansion's perimeter. It's subtle, but they're here. The rival gang is planning another strike. Zara's pulse quickened, but she did not flinch. She had survived once. She could survive again. Jae-hyun stood, towering over her, his presence protective and imposing. Stay here. Stay behind me. No one touches you or Soo-min. Not tonight. He moved toward the door, and Zara felt an inexplicable pull in her chest, a mix of fear, attraction, and trust. She realized, with a clarity she could not deny, that she would follow him anywhere, even into the fire. The mansion, gleaming and opulent by day, had transformed into a fortress of tension and danger. And in the quiet moments before the storm, Zara understood something vital. She was no longer just a maid, a caretaker, or an outsider. She was part of this world now, part of Jae-hyun's life. And perhaps, in the midst of bullets, betrayal, and blood, part of his heart. As night fell over Seoul, the city's lights twinkled like distant stars, oblivious to the storm about to descend. The enemy outside was relentless. The danger was real. And the forbidden attraction between a Korean Mafia CEO and a brave black Maid had just begun to ignite. Zara had survived bullets once. Tonight, she would have to survive the dark secrets of a man whose past was as dangerous as his enemies, and whose heart might be more perilous than any gun. The mansion was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that made every shadow feel alive. Zara, still weak from her previous injuries, moved cautiously beside Jae-hyun as they patrolled the perimeter. The glow of the city beyond the mansion walls seemed distant, as if the world outside no longer mattered. Tonight, danger was inside their sanctuary, and every step could mean the difference between life and death. Jae-hyun's jaw was set, his eyes scanning the darkened gardens with precision. He had fought men before, eliminated threats without hesitation, but the stakes tonight were different. This time, it wasn't just business or power at risk, it was Zara and Soo-min, and that made the bloodlust in him far more dangerous. "They've been quiet too long," Jae-hyun muttered, his hand resting lightly on the pistol at his hip. Too confident. Zara's pulse quickened, but she did not speak. She had learned to trust him, to read the subtle shifts in his expression and body language. Every instinct told her that the enemy was watching, waiting for a mistake. And she would not make one, not tonight. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed from the mansion's rear entrance. Lights flickered, alarms blared, and the sound of shouting cut through the night. Jae-hyun's body moved before his mind fully processed the attack. "Stay behind me," he barked, pulling Zara close as he drew his weapon. They entered the hall together, moving with precision born of instinct and training. The rival gang had arrived in force, masked and armed, their intent clear: kidnap Soo-min and eliminate anyone who stood in their way. Zara's heart raced, but fear had no place in her mind. She had faced death once for this child. She could do it again. She moved with purpose, disarming an intruder who lunged at her with a knife, her hands quick and precise. Despite her injuries, her courage never faltered. Jae-hyun moved like a shadow, striking with brutal efficiency. Bullets rang out, glass shattered, and the mansion erupted into chaos. But amid the violence, there was an unspoken rhythm between him and Zara, a synchrony born of trust and necessity. They moved as one, protecting each other, covering each other's blind spots, their bond strengthening with every threat neutralized. At one point, an attacker lunged toward Zara from behind. Jae-hyun reacted instantly, shoving her out of the way and taking the bullet meant for her shoulder. Pain flared across his side, but he gritted his teeth, refusing to falter. For the first time, Zara saw vulnerability in him, not weakness, but a man willing to sacrifice himself for her and Soo-min. "You're insane," she shouted over the din, adrenaline sharpening her voice. "And you're fearless," he shot back, eyes blazing. "Now move." Together, they fought through the mansion, the clash of violence mingling with the unspoken tension that had been simmering between them for weeks. Every glance, every brush of hands, every coordinated move reminded them both of the dangerous connection they shared. Finally, they reached Soo-min's room, the child huddled under her bed, eyes wide with terror. Zara rushed to her side, scooping her into her arms. "It's okay, princess," she whispered, her voice steady despite the chaos. "I'm here. Daddy's here." Jae-hyun moved to the doorway, gun raised, and with Zara at his side, he cut down the remaining attackers with ruthless precision. Each movement was calculated, each shot deadly. The enemy had underestimated them, and they had paid the price. When the last intruder fell, the mansion was quiet once more. Smoke drifted through the hallways, and shattered glass glittered on the polished floors. Zara lowered Su-min to the ground, breathing heavily, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Jae-hyun approached her slowly, concern etched across his face. "Are you hurt?" he asked, voice tight with emotion. "Nothing serious," she lied, though her side throbbed from the last skirmish. "I'm fine." He studied her, his gaze lingering in a way that made her stomach flutter. "You shouldn't have been here," he said, voice low, almost a growl. "You're not just brave, Zara, you're reckless. And He paused, the words catching in his throat. For a moment, the world outside the mansion, the danger, and the violence all fell away. All that remained was them. Two people bound by life, courage, and the undeniable pull between them. Zara's hand brushed his arm, tentative but electric. "I'm here because of you, and because of her," she said, nodding towards Su-min. "I won't leave. Not now, not ever." Jae-hyun's dark eyes softened, vulnerability and desire warring with the dominance that defined him. Slowly, he reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. The touch was a promise, a reassurance, and a confession all at once. "You're not leaving me either," he whispered, stepping closer. "I've already lost too much. I can't lose you. Not you. Not her. Not us." Zara's breath caught. She had survived bullets, danger, and betrayal, but this was something else entirely. She felt the intensity of his words, the heat in his gaze, and the undeniable connection that had grown between them. The mansion, scarred by violence, now felt like a sanctuary once more. The danger had passed, for now, but the emotional storm between them raged fiercer than ever. They stood together, side by side, their hearts beating in sync, the attraction that had simmered for weeks now undeniable and consuming. Su-min, oblivious to the tension, clapped her hands and ran between them. "You're my mommy and daddy. You saved me," she exclaimed, her joy piercing the lingering adrenaline like sunlight through clouds. Jae-hyun knelt to her level, a rare smile breaking across his face. "Yes, princess. We're a team. Always." Zara looked at him, their hands still linked, and realized something profound. They had faced death, violence, and betrayal together, but it was their courage, trust, and love that had truly kept them alive. She understood now that survival wasn't just about strength or bullets. It was about connection, loyalty, and the willingness to fight for each other. As the night settled over the mansion, the two of them stood in quiet understanding. The danger outside might return, and their enemies would never stop, but inside these walls, amidst the chaos and the danger, something far more powerful had been forged. Love, trust, an unbreakable bond that neither bullets nor betrayal could destroy. Jae-hyun finally spoke, his voice low but steady, full of emotion. "Zara, whatever happens, I promise you this. I'll always protect you. Always. And one day, I'll make sure you understand just how much you mean to me." Zara's eyes glistened with tears, both from relief and something deeper, something that had been growing silently for weeks. I think I already do," she whispered. And in that moment, amidst the wreckage of their home and the remnants of violence, they realized the truth. Together, they could face anything. Together, they were unstoppable. Together, they were home. The morning sunlight filtered through the tall windows of the mansion, painting the shattered remnants of the previous night's chaos in soft gold. The mansion had been repaired, walls patched, and glass replaced, but the events of the night before had left an indelible mark, not on the structure, but on the hearts of those inside. Zara sat beside Su-min in the sunlit breakfast room, helping her daughter without blood. No, she corrected herself. Helping Jae-hyun's daughter color a drawing of the family. The tension from last night had subsided, replaced by a fragile calm, the kind that came after surviving something impossible together. Jae-hyun entered, dressed in a casual shirt, but with the same commanding aura he carried whether in a boardroom or battlefield. His eyes met Zara's, and for a long moment, they simply looked at each other, unspoken words passing between them like electricity. "You're awake early," Zara said softly, setting down the colored pencils. "I sleep best when I know you're safe," he replied, voice low and intimate. "After last night, I realized something." Zara's pulse quickened, her heart skipping in ways she hadn't felt since he had first proposed the impossible. "And what's that?" she asked, trying to keep her tone casual, though every fiber of her body was alert. "That I can't risk another day without you knowing how I feel," he said, stepping closer. The distance between them shrank, and with every step, the heat in his gaze intensified. "Zara, you're not just my daughter's hero. You're my hero, my anchor, my everything." Zara swallowed, her chest tightening. She had faced death, bullets, rival gangs, and violence beyond imagination, but hearing him say those words made her feel more vulnerable than anything else. "Jae-hyun," she began, voice trembling, unsure if she could truly speak the torrent of emotions inside her. He knelt before her, one knee on the polished floor, taking her hands into his. "Zara, I made a promise. Not just to Soo-min, not just to you, but to myself. I will protect you, love you, and make you mine, officially, if you'll have me." Soo-min gasped, clapping her small hands. "Yay, Mommy and Daddy," she exclaimed, eyes sparkling. The child's innocent approval melted away the last of Zara's hesitation. Zara laughed softly, tears brimming in her eyes. She had feared this world, feared the power, the danger, the difference between them. But standing here, seeing the truth in his eyes, feeling his warmth, she realized the risk was worth it. She had already risked her life for them. Now, she was ready to risk her heart. "Yes," she whispered, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Yes, I'll marry you." Jae-hyun's expression softened into something rare, a mixture of relief, awe, and something deeper that words could not contain. He rose, taking her into his arms, their lips meeting in a kiss that was gentle, fierce, and consuming all at once. The world outside ceased to exist, the violence, the chaos, the danger, all irrelevant. In this moment, there was only them, bound by courage, love, and an unbreakable trust. Soo-min cheered, climbing onto Zara's lap and then wrapping her tiny arms around both of them. "You're really my mommy and daddy now," she giggled. Jae-hyun laughed, a rare sound of joy and release. "Yes, princess, we're a family, and nothing will ever threaten us again." The calm, however, was tempered by reality. The mafia world did not forgive, and Jae-hyun knew the peace would be temporary. But with Zara by his side, he felt an unprecedented sense of strength. Together, they were not just lovers. They were partners, capable of facing any danger, no matter how deadly. Later that day, in the quiet of the mansion's private garden, Jae-hyun held Zara's hand. "I know our worlds are different," he said softly, "and I know the life I lead is dangerous. But I want you to know, you belong here, with me, with Soo-min. No one will take that from us." Zara's dark eyes met his, steady and unwavering. "I know," she said, voice firm. "And I'm ready to face this life with you." He smiled, a mixture of pride and adoration in his gaze. "Then nothing can stop us. Not rivals, not bullets, not fate." The moment stretched, filled with promise. The mansion, once a place of cold luxury and calculated control, had transformed into a home, a sanctuary for love, courage, and family. The battles they had faced had forged a bond stronger than any bullet, deeper than any fear. Soo-min ran ahead to the swing set in the garden, laughter ringing in the air. Zara watched her, a smile on her face, feeling the warmth of belonging she had never known before. And as she turned to Jae-hyun, the man who had been her enemy's fear and now her heart's desire, she realized one undeniable truth. Love, once found, could conquer even the darkest of worlds. Jae-hyun stepped closer, brushing a stray curl from her face. From now on, Zara Kim, you're officially my wife, my partner, my equal. And I'll spend the rest of my life proving it. Zara's lips curved into a radiant smile. And I'll stand by you, Jae-hyun Kim, no matter what comes. They stood together, hands entwined, hearts beating in sync, the chaos of the mafia world lingering only in the shadows behind them. Together, they were unstoppable. Together, they were home. Outside, the city continued to hum, unaware that within the mansion walls, a black maid and a Korean Mafia CEO had defied danger, bullets, and fate itself, and forged a love story that would endure for a lifetime. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in gold and crimson, Zara, Jae-hyun, and Soo-min embraced their new reality. A family born of courage, loyalty, and unshakable love. Nothing could tear them apart. Not bullets, not betrayal, not the world itself.